Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today we are taking a look at the brand new Tier 8 Premium Soviet destroyer, the Provorny. The Provorny is a bit of a unique ship here recently for a couple of reasons. One, it is a real still historical ship. This was the real-life Z-33 that was transferred to the Soviet Navy as part of war reparations after World War II, so that's cool. We're getting less and less of those historical ships in the game, so it's always a good thing, in my opinion, when we get a new historical ship added to the digital fleet. And unlike a whole hell of a lot of ships here recently, the Provorny is not coming out as part of some overly convoluted event or random bundle or whatever. You can simply purchase the thing in the premium shop, not even in an Admiral bundle. For once in quite a few months, we can just buy this ship outright for the normal cost of a Tier 8 premium ship, which is around $47 US. So I gotta give props to Wargaming for that off the bat. It's refreshing seeing them going back to this more traditional release style of premium ships, and something that I've been harping on them about for some time. So when they do change their ways, I very much like to give them credit for that. So the Provorny, is it worth picking up in today's World of Warships? Is it worth that $47? You can also, if you do want to gamble for it in the Red Fleet containers, the Soviet containers, whatever they're calling them now, you can do that as well, but obviously I would highly recommend just buying the thing outright so you ain't got to gamble for it if you do decide to pick it up. But do you want to pick it up? Well, let's take a look at the Provorny today. Before we do, though, I have to give a massive shout out to the channel's Patreon supporters. I am not a CC, so I do not get any of the ships you see on the channel here to review for free or any early access to them. That's why sometimes, like with the Provorny, I like to spend a couple of days with it to get a feel for it before I get a video out. So I do have to buy everything that you see on the channel, and the Patreons help out with that immensely. So if you want to support the channel, the best place to do so besides just watching the videos and streams is the Patreon, which there's a link to that in the description down below. So, the Provorny. So, like I said, the Provorny is a German destroyer, the Z-33, that was transferred over to the Soviets after World War II. That gives her an interesting mix of Soviet and German characteristics. Though from my experience playing her, she very much plays heavily like a Soviet destroyer. So, obviously it looks like a German destroyer, and it has the German guns, but you get a lot of Sovietness when you get into those main battery guns. So the 150mm main battery guns have excellent HE and AP shells. Both shells perform very well in terms of their alpha damage. The AP, you will have a maximum alpha damage of 3,700, along with the HE having a maximum alpha damage of 2,150, which is pretty darn good. And keep in mind, these are 150mm guns. These are essentially light cruiser guns on a destroyer. But back to the HE. On top of having a nice alpha rating on the HE shells, the HE shells have, with the fire flag equipped, a 13.5% fire chance with one fire flag equipped. So if you take the other one, that will be a 14% fire chance on the commander build that I'm running, which does include Demolition Expert. So stock it's 12.5%, which is pretty darn good considering you can pin 30mm of armor, and then you still have a 12.5% chance of starting a fire on top of that. Now obviously if you want to take IFHE, that'll drop you down to around 6-7% and change depending upon what build you're running, but you will be pinning 32mm of armor, which is a last major threshold in the game, so you could very much go that way, get some good consistent damage like that, on top of having, still a pretty solid fire chance on, guns that are reloading pretty quickly, again, depending upon how you want to build into it. So the HE is very nice. AP, if you played Soviet destroyers, you know what's up with the AP. Pretty much when anything shows you broadside, load up your AP shells, aim for the superstructure, the extremities, or with the 150s, that does give you the ability to bully broadside light cruisers. Heavy cruisers too, you won't be able to citadel those heavy cruisers, but there's plenty of light cruisers out there that if they slip up and show you broadside, you can very much citadel them with this 150mm AP that the Provorny is spewing out. So that's, yeah, something you definitely need to do. And even if you're not citadeling them, I mean, with the AP alpha, you'll be chunking them, in my experience, anywhere from 5,000 to 6,000, 7,000 damage, depending upon exactly, how many of your shells land and bite into the armor of the ship. it's a beautiful thing to behold. But again, if you played Soviet ships, or Soviet destroyers at least, that should be no strange concept to you. So, but on top of the shells just being good, the guns themselves are also really nice and comfortable. Once again, if you played Soviet destroyers, you know what to expect here. This is a second line destroyer. It's not really made to go in there and get in there and knife fight. The background footage you're watching right now, naturally, because I'm trying to play this thing one way. Of course, the game is not, well, cooperating with me, and at a time trying to get a match that simply lasted long enough to serve as background footage for this video. But anyway, yeah, so knife fighting, it's slightly better at it than you might think, if you come from playing, ships like the Cavaros and the Delny and such, but it's definitely not really meant to be played that way at all. This is definitely a second line destroyer. You back up your destroyers going there in the cap. Use your hard hitting HE and AP shells to bully anything that's threatening your destroyers in the cap, and you use the engine boost and such to juke the shells that are being slung back at you. But the guns are very good for that. They're very comfortable at medium to longer ranges. With the Provorny here, again, played Soviet destroyers, should be sounding familiar to you there. But moving on from the gun, surprisingly, she gets some pretty nice torpedoes as well. They are, Wargame describes them as balanced, and I have to say, yeah, they're pretty balanced in terms of what you get. You get good range, 10-kilometer range. You get good damage, 12,667 maximum damage at tier 8. That's pretty good. And they travel at 60 knots. Pretty good as well. Pretty good there as well. You have 130-second base reload time. Of course, if you want to, you can build into that to get that down a little bit. It's definitely not a torpedo boat, but I could see if you want to mix up the build and throw another skill or two at the torpedoes, or a module or two at the torpedoes. That's something you could do. I would go for main battery build because that's kind of where a lot of this ship is meant to be at, right? But I could see maybe wanting to build into them a little bit more. Again, I wouldn't personally recommend it. I think they're fine enough as is. It's a nice supplemental damage income to your main battery guns, in my opinion. When they get loaded, just toss them down at a channel you think a destroyer might be running at something that I was able to do with pretty decent results is throw them at a target, start bullying them with the guns like a battleship or something, force them to turn their broadside to you, and then hopefully your torpedoes are traveling pretty well on their way to their broadside at that moment. They turn to get all their guns on you, data wall of torpedoes, you remove over half of their HP, they pop damage con to stop the flooding, and now you hit them with the HE, start some fires, and then while they're trying to deal with that, you swap them over to the AP, bully their superstructure, and they're bound their stern for more damage. It's a pretty good method I was able to use with some battleships with the Provorny there. And that's more getting on how to play it. We'll get there in a second. AA, not really where it's at all. Maneuverability, without the engine boost, she's running at 37.8 knots top speed with the speed flag. She does have engine boost, so obviously you can get her up and over 40 knots. She tops out, I believe, right around with the engine boost, going 40, what was it, 43, 42 knots, somewhere in there. Or like just 41, something like that. So, just over 40 knots, pretty comfortable speed for a turret destroyer. You can take the coal module to get your engine boost running for a little bit longer. The engine boost, as it stands right now, your engine boost runs for a whopping 156 seconds with the coal module. So the coal module, keep in mind, that adds another 30% to the action time of your engine boost. Obviously, it's a Soviet second line destroyer. I would highly encourage you guys to take that. Rudder shift time 4.7 seconds. She has a turning circle radius of 630 meters. Concealment with the build that I'm running on her, 7.1 kilometers. It's a gunboat. You're going to be using the guns. Doesn't have smoke, which means you're going to be spotted. So concealment, while yeah, you definitely need it to disengage, it's a destroyer that's going to be spotted when it's shooting, which is again where most of its damage is going to be coming in at. So no great loss that it's not the stealthiest destroyer ever, in my opinion. You're going to be spotted. Who cares? That's kind of the mantra of the Soviet gunboats, and this is very much a Soviet gunboat. So, talked about her consumables already. She has an engine boost. She does get a heal as well. The heal regenerates 282 HP per second with the HP skill in the commander and with the HP flag equipped. And that's a pretty decent chunk to get back on a tier 8 ship. It doesn't sound like a lot, and like, sure, it's not a big number, but like, it's a tier 8 destroyer with a hill. They don't exactly hand those out at tier 8. Tier 9, tier 10, sure, there's quite a few up there that get a heal. Not many down there at tier 8. Does have a 25mm belt armor as well, so that is a pretty nice middle finger to a fair few other destroyer caliber HE shells at our tier. And of course, she gets damage con as well. Alright, so as far as the commander module, I basically built it like my Cabros. I'll throw it back up on screen for you right now. This is the commander and the module build I was running on my Provorny. I did go, throughout the night, and I did toss IFHE on there to, to see how it went, to see if I was getting luckier with the fires or, going with the consistent damage. Either or really works, in my opinion. If you want, a bit more of a guarantee that you're going to be doing damage, you can very much go for the IFHE, and that will get you pinning 32mm of armor. So you can bully, tier 8 and above battleships and such. But at the same time, too, I was having surprisingly good fire chances with the Provorny. She was wanting to light stuff up on fire for me for most of the night. However, again, that's RNG based, right? So either one would work. You have the good AP to fall back on either way. That's the thing about the Provorny. She doesn't have to pick between, is this an AP destroyer or is this an HE destroyer? She's got good both. So in whatever situation you're in with her main battery guns, she'll do decently well as long as you can get shells on target, right? Because if they're angled out, use HE, set fires, or pin 32mm of armor and above with IFHE. They're broadside, use AP, chew down their extremities, or if it's a light cruiser, citadel it. And that's generally how you'll be playing the Provorny. She's a second-line destroyer, like I mentioned already, which means you're behind the destroyers that are going into the cap and capping them. You're behind them, supporting them with your heavy 150mm HE shells if, a destroyer comes up and tries to murder your destroyer. If a cruiser tries to bully your destroyer, you go ahead, you lob your shells at them, be it HE or AP, grab their attention, and pop your speed boost, and then throttle juke them. Which, if you don't know what throttle juking is, it's simply playing with your speed. And with the improved characteristics that the engine boost gives to your Provorny, you accelerate, decelerate quicker. So, you'll be going full throttle, crank it all the way to reverse, crank it up to half, and you're just changing your throttle randomly, and that will throw off so many shells. It's so funny. There should have been a moment in here where an Alaska was trying to shoot me from like 10 kilometers away, and the little bit of throttle juking I was doing was throwing off his shells. It's a beautiful thing to do in these Soviet destroyers, and the Provorny is very much good at it. So by doing that, you allow your destroyers to do their thing, and you're taking away shells that would normally go toward your friendly ships. They're being shot at you and wasted on you because you're throttle juking the enemy team to madness, and that's kind of the Soviet gunboat destroyer thing. Now, the thing about the Provorny is that she actually has really good range for a tier 8 destroyer. 13.9 kilometers if you take the commander skills. So that is, which is a main battery and AA expert. So you get that 20% buff to your main battery gun range, and the shells are very much usable at that range, thanks to the ballistics, right? So that's, I'm thinking about 13.9 kilometers on a tier 8 destroyer. When you're top tier, you're really bullying other ships with that range on a destroyer with engine boost and good acceleration parameters and things like that. Yeah, you're being an absolute menace to the enemy team. Now, is this thing worth the $47 Wargaming's asking for it? Well, I'd say if you like Soviet destroyers and you love the Delny line, formerly the Khabarovsk line, and you like what you see in the background, you like 150mm guns on destroyers, which again, these are light cruiser guns on a pretty fast platform here at the Provorny, it's a pretty solid pickup in my opinion. It's a really, really strong gunboat destroyer at tier 8. It's got a lot of HP. You forgot to mention that with the module, no, I'm sorry, not the module, with the commander skill and the flag, you have a whopping 23,550 HP at tier 8. That is a lot of HP for a tier 8 destroyer to have. And keep in mind, too, you can slap Kuznetsov on the Provorny here, and you get that additional heal once you get below 10% HP, which is a massive pickup to have on a destroyer. So, yeah. It's a pretty solid pick, in my opinion. There's no shortage of Soviet ships that you can use the Provorny to train up your commanders for. Like I said, I've literally been running my Khabarovsk commander on my Provorny with Kuznetsov here, and it's been doing great. So you can build them just like this out for whatever Soviet gunboat destroyer you want, or just build them up to 21 points. Pretty solid pick in my humble opinion. I am a battleship main, but I do like my gunboat destroyers, and I do like the Provorny. So, good pickup in my opinion. I don't think it is anything that you necessarily need to, again, drop what you're doing and go out and get it right now, right? Like, it's a good pick. And, if you're looking for a gunboat destroyer and you play the Khabarovsk or the Delny, you like those ships, you'll like the Provorny here. It's a really solid entry into the Soviet gunboat family, in my humble opinion. And it's a real still historical ship. That's always worth a little bit more, in my opinion. So, guys, let me know what you guys think about the Provorny. If you've picked her up and played her, you're having a good time with her, what's your 2 cents on her? Share all that with us down below. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, all of that jazz. Hope you guys have a wonderful Saturday, wonderful rest of your weekend. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.